to get from degrees to radians or radians to degrees, what you will need to do is keep in mind that pi over 180, 180 over pi, they are both interchangeable. Since they are both equivalent to a 1, and by that I mean when we were doing the circumference formula, 180 degrees was a measure of pi. 180 and pi are the same. 180 and pi can be exchanged one for the other, so they are equivalent values. When I divide one by the other, I should get a 1 since they are the same thing. So when I'm changing from one mode to the other, what I want to remember is that whatever it is I have, I want to multiply by one of those two. Pi is a radian count. 180 is a degrees count. I want to put in the numerator what I want to keep. And I want to put in the denominator what I want to get rid of. And that means when I'm changing from degrees into radians, I want to get rid of the degrees. So you're going to take your degrees and multiply by pi over 180. When I'm changing from radians to degrees, I want to get rid of the radians. So I'm going to take my radians and I'm going to multiply by 180 over pi. Does everybody see that logic? Essentially, the denominator of a fraction is the divide it out, get rid of it, break it into parts piece of the fraction. So if I'm putting it in the denominator, I'm getting rid of that piece. So moving right along, here's logistically how that happens. What I want to do to this 145 is I want to multiply it by pi over 180. Now if you think of fractions in terms of multiplication, really to multiply two fractions, I multiply the tops, I multiply the bottoms. There's a reducing piece that goes on here, and that reducing piece looks something like this. I'm going to try to reduce or divide out any common factor. The denominator's location doesn't really matter to me. So I can actually think of this 180 as being under the 145, and I can just go to my calculator if I have one, and my brain if I don't have a calculator, and I can reduce 145 over 180. If you have a calculator, and I think you do right now, you can type in 145 divided by 180, enter, math, enter, enter, and it'll give you the reduced form of that fraction, which is 29 over 36. That means this is 29, hello, with a 2, 29 over 36 pi. The pi is a numerator, so it is also fine to be written off to the right. It is fine to be written in the numerator. It is absolutely positively not okay to write that in the denominator. That pi is not a denominator, and I will mark that so wrong I may even chase you. You will not put pi in the denominator. Off to the right is fine, in the numerator is fine, in the denominator not so much. Are you okay there? So that would be the equivalent of 29 pi over 36, or 29/36 of a pi. Still good? Okay, would you please try to do the next three on your own? Your answer will have pi in it. Pi is a measure of radians. Okay, see how you did? A couple little commentaries on that. As soon as I looked at 270, I went, wait a minute, that sounds familiar to me. That's one of my axes. And two things with that. First, if you're here, look up the clock. There's your answer. See where 270 is? Okay, you're done. The second thing, though, is even if you're sitting at home, you can just do what I did with my arms. You can go, okay, 270, it's down there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, pi over 6, reduce, 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 I'm done. Got it? The other two were a little bit harder, but this one, again, if I just think of it as negative 100 over 180 pi, it's a simple reduction. Lose the zeros and divide by 2. Negative 5 times. The last one was not reducible, so you were good to go. Any questions on those? So really pretty simple. Still good? Okay, with the other ones, there are actually two different schools of thought for this. The first school of thought is pi's got to go. Need to get rid of that pi, so I'm going to put it on the bottom. 180 is what I want to put in, so I'm going to put it on the top. And it works. You just cross out the pi's, and 2 times 180 is 360. We said 2 pi was a full circle, 360 makes sense. The other school of thought, though, and the reason that I showed it to you that way is to show you that 180 over pi, pi over 180. If you need to remember it's always going to be a fraction, run with that. It works. And these are the 2 fractions you're going to be using at the top of the page. But if you want to use a different technique that might be just a scooch easier, the technique you could use is saying pi and 180, they're the same thing. So I'll just replace this pi with a 180 and then do math. 3 times 180 divided by 4. Bam, you're done. Do the last 3.